Hello everyone, and welcome to Innovate for Climate's Facebook Live. We are live here in Singapore at our digital media zone, where governments, businesses, and leaders from across these sectors are gathered to discuss the future of climate innovations, markets, and finance. Before we start, do make sure to follow the conversation using the hashtag #InnovateForClimate. I'm Ferzina Banaji, the communications lead for climate at the World Bank, and I'm joined with Sandhya Srinivasan, the climate change specialist at the World Bank. Sandhya, welcome.
Thank you.
Sandhya, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. That's what you're here to work on. So tell us a little bit more about it and what brings it here.
Okay, so Article 6 has increasingly become a focus of the Paris Agreement, in part because it's one of the components that was not resolved at the COP in Katowice. It's basically the part of the Paris Agreement that deals with carbon markets. It provides an opening for countries to trade in emission reductions. The benefit of markets, as we've seen under the Kyoto Protocol, is that it helps mobilize resources towards climate change projects. Under CDM, we saw that every dollar invested in carbon markets brought between $4.5 to $10 to the underlying project. And the other benefit is, of course, efficiency. It reduces the cost of implementing climate change actions. So we saw under CDM that there was a massive reduction in the resources required for implementing climate change related activities from market efficiencies. And estimates for the Paris Agreement range as high as $250 billion between now and 2030 to implement NDCs.
Thank you. It's a nice way to get different kinds of capital flowing into this. Can you tell us a little bit about what the World Bank Group is doing on Article 6?
So the bank sees a role for itself in trying to kickstart action while the rules are still being developed and finalized. So one of the things we're trying to do is to look at what are the elements that are fundamental to the creation of a market. And if we think about it, the three fundamental elements are the demand, the supply, and the infrastructure for some kind of exchange to take place. On the demand side, the multilateral development banks jointly are trying to create emission reductions in line with the rules of the Paris Agreement to kickstart and create an initial supply of emission reductions for markets. On the demand side, we have a number of carbon funds, such as the Transformative Carbon Asset Facility, which are trying to benchmark carbon market transactions. So they are trying to look at what kind of documents would we need, what kind of assessments would we need, so that players are able to transact in carbon markets. On the infrastructure side, we are trying to develop something that we call the climate warehouse. This would essentially be like an Amazon.com of all the emission reductions. It would link different sellers of emission reductions together and allow them to list all their emission reductions on a single platform. And it would allow buyers to apply filters to see which emission reductions meet their requirements so that they can buy those. And all of these activities together are expected to contribute to building knowledge, capacity, and creating a blueprint of documents that can be used for initiating and rapidly scaling up climate markets once the Paris Agreement becomes effective in 2020.
Wonderful. It sounds like it could be potentially incredibly transformative. So what's on the horizon for Article 6 then?
So several issues remain to be resolved, to be fair, and we're hoping that we get some answers from COP25 in Chile this year. That said, there's reason to remain optimistic. Domestic markets are already showing a lot of momentum. The total value of carbon pricing initiatives across countries rose by over 50% in 2018 to $82 billion. And we also see a lot of countries keen to show early action in international markets as well. And we're hoping that we'll be able to see voluntary action through countries acting in good faith and subscribing to the requirements of Paris, whatever they might be, so that we can start learning by doing and start creating policies and practices based on practical experience from piloting initiatives.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing some insights on Article 6. If you have any questions or comments, please do tweet at us, Innovate for Climate. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.